2 days ago, I attended my ex-wife's wedding which got called off and everyone believes that it's kind of my fault. My ex-wife Taylor, 29F, and I, 30M, got together a couple of years after we graduated. We were interning at the same place and became friends that way. She was cute and funny so I asked her out and we were in a relationship for 2 years before she started hinting that she wanted to get married. I must have been around 24 at the time so I wasn't ready to get married yet but she started getting impatient and I proposed to her because she was pressuring me. That was my fault, I shouldn't have given into it but I didn't think things through. I was young and I made a mistake. So anyway, we got married and then things started getting even worse because just a couple of months into our marriage, she started talking about having kids. I was okay with getting married but the idea of having kids at 24 just freaked me out. Plus, we were not even financially stable enough to be able to afford kids. I was just starting out and I could afford a nice lifestyle for the two of us but kids would just be way too much for us to handle. And Taylor wasn't exactly a hard worker, she was switching jobs a little too often because she was very laid back and her employers didn't appreciate it. Even if we were somehow able to keep the financial aspect of it aside, I still wasn't mentally prepared to become a father because I was feeling pretty young and not responsible enough for kids. I didn't think that it was the right time for us and I tried explaining that to her several times but she wouldn't stop bringing it up and insisted that if we just had a baby, it would solve everything and lay all of my worries to rest. I would learn to be a father and we could always borrow money from our parents and pay them back later. She said that she was ready to be a mother and didn't want to wait until she was in her late 20s. Because this was apparently the peak of her youth and childbearing years and she wanted to make the most of it. I didn't agree with that and that led to a lot of fights, which just got worse with time. After almost 2 years, we called it quits. She wanted something that I was not going to be ready for, maybe ever. And I didn't want to give her false hopes by staying with her and wasting her time. So I filed for divorce after a particularly nasty fight, where she said that she wished that she had never married me and I found myself wishing the same. Clearly, we were not right for each other and a divorce was the only way to go ahead. But she ended up taking the divorce hard and was pretty much inconsolable when she was served. I had already moved out and was living with a friend of mine when I filed for divorce and she called me and sobbed for hours, begging me to take her back and cancel the proceedings on the day that she was served. It was incredibly difficult for me and a tough call to make but I had to stick to my decision because I knew that if I backed down then I would regret it. It was definitely not easy but I had to go through with the divorce. Because those 2 years that I was married to her were pretty much hell for me and I didn't want to go back to that life again. She didn't contest the divorce after our conversation that day and didn't even speak to me afterward until the negotiation for the settlement and division of property came up. She and her lawyer were absolutely vicious and the divorce was a bad one but, thankfully, I didn't lose much. But I started hating her during the proceedings because she and her lawyer were going above and beyond to make me look like the bad guy when I had been nothing but great to her. Despite her crazy, psychotic behavior and her insistence that I do things that I didn't want to. After our divorce was finalized, I never spoke to her again and I blocked her on every platform. I also told all our common friends that I never wished to hear from her or about her because I hated her. That was almost 3 or 4 years ago and we didn't speak for a really long time until she reached out to me a few months ago to invite me to her wedding. She reached out to me personally after she sent me the invite and sent me an email saying that she would love to have me at her wedding and reconcile because she regretted the way that we ended things. In her email, she told me that she had resented me for a long time after our divorce. But now that she had finally moved on, she wanted to make amends with me because she knew the divorce had been particularly hard on me since she and her lawyer really hadn't held back. She wanted to make things right by reconnecting with me and she wanted to do it at her wedding, so she could embark on this new journey with a clear conscience. At first, I didn't respond to that email because I was still out on the fence about whether I wanted to reconnect with Taylor or not. But then, a few weeks after the first email, she sent me another one saying that she wanted to meet me and make everything right with me because she didn't want this on her conscience anymore. She requested me to attend the ceremony and be there for her because before we got married, we were good friends and that made me reconsider, so I agreed to attend her wedding. I guess it was really stupid of me but her second email was really heartfelt and I couldn't bring myself to decline. I unblocked her on social media and we were doing alright, we were on talking terms until the day of her wedding. On the day of the event, I showed up at the venue and was pretty surprised to see the exact same arrangements as my wedding. It was a little off-putting but I didn't think much of it, even though I was having insane déjà vu because of how similar everything was to our wedding. I thought that maybe she just didn't want to put in extra effort to make this different from her first wedding and just went with whatever she liked and forced myself into believing that this had nothing to do with me. Then, once I went in, I took my seat and after a while, it was time for Taylor to walk down the aisle. Everybody present was quite surprised to see me there and I realized that they didn't expect me to actually attend. And later on, I found out that most of them didn't even know that I would be invited. Including the groom, which is something I found out way later than I should have. Anyway, Taylor walked down the aisle and got to the aisle, and everybody's eyes were on her and not on me, which was a relief. When it was time for the vows, her fiancé went first and it was beautiful. I could sense that he really loved her. And then it all went downhill as soon as Taylor started speaking because as it turns out, this was her big plan. She didn't care about peace or making things right with me since her vows were all about me. She went on to talk about how terrible her first marriage had been and said that she was thrilled that her second marriage was not going to be as bad. Because she was with a much better man now. She then went on to say a couple of more things to insult me, and after that, she even pointed at me and waved like she was performing a stand-up routine. It was ridiculous and insane, but I just remained frozen in my place because I was in shock. What made me snap out of it was when her fiancé said that he had seen enough, and it was clear to him that Taylor had obviously not moved on from me entirely. He looked crestfallen and I couldn't help but feel bad for the guy because this was supposed to be a day to celebrate their relationship. And yet Taylor was up there, talking about me and her vows. Her fiancé speaking up probably made her snap out of her insanity as well, and she came back to her senses when he started walking away from the altar. The guy was crying, and as soon as he started walking away, Taylor chased after him, which was difficult because she was wearing a really heavy dress. After that, it was pretty much chaos and nobody had a clue what to do because the bride and groom had left. I tried to leave and made it to my car in the parking lot before I was cornered by my ex-in-laws. They confronted me and asked me why I had shown up, so I told them that it was Taylor who had invited me and I genuinely didn't know that she was going to do this. They told me that regardless, I shouldn't have turned up because this was supposed to be my ex-wife's wedding and any man with even an ounce of common sense would know better than to actually show up. I didn't think it was fair for them to blame me because I'd just done what she had asked me to. She was the one who specifically requested me to attend her wedding, and that's why I did so, for peace. I even showed those 2 emails to her parents, hoping that it would make them realize that this was her fault and not mine. But they told me that apparently, I had always known that Taylor had feelings for me even during the divorce and it had been hard for her to move on. I didn't know that. And by responding to her invitation, and then talking to her, I distracted her from her relationship, which is why she got off track today, and now her wedding was ruined because of me. I thought it was crazy that they were even blaming me for this, so I got into my car as soon as I could and went back home. Afterward, I learned that the wedding had to be called off because her fiancé wasn't ready to get married to her anymore. A common friend told me that apparently, she hadn't even told her fiancé that he was going to invite me. So he had been completely blindsided when he saw me sitting among the guests. They didn't know much about what had happened later, but all that they did know is that their families got into a really bad argument and her fiancé and his parents stormed out because they thought that Taylor was still not over me. She was forcing this wedding because she wanted to make me jealous, which is why she had invited me and had made it a point to talk about me during the ceremony because she wanted me to feel bad and regret leaving her. Honestly, that theory makes a lot of sense and I'm pretty sure that that's exactly what happened. Because if she had moved on from me, she wouldn't have cared about me being present there or not. Taylor insisted that she only made that speech because she saw me sitting there and her plan was to humiliate me and then move on to talking about how great she had it with her man now, and so everybody would realize just how over me she was. I think it was a terrible idea on her part and I really don't buy what she said in her defense. If she was truly over me, she wouldn't feel the need to talk about me or to prove to anybody that she was over me. She just wouldn't care. It's sad that her wedding had to fall apart, but what's even sadder is that our friends are blaming me for this. They think that I should have just rejected her invitation and blocked her because I'd always known that she had a soft corner for me. And they agreed with Taylor's parents, that my being involved in her life again is what distracted her and that's why she went crazy and wrote that stupid little speech, which is what ended up ruining her wedding. Everybody has been blaming me for what happened and they believe that I shouldn't have shown up at all, even after I told them that she is the one who invited me and even requested me to attend so that we could make peace with our past. Ida for attending my ex-wife's wedding? Update 1. 1 week has passed since the wedding and I have stopped speaking to all our common friends. I don't think it was fair for them to blame me and make me feel bad about what happened at the wedding because it wasn't my fault. Most of you agreed in the comment section that I had nothing to do with what happened and I barely even spoke to her in the months leading up to the wedding. I couldn't have possibly known that she still had a thing for me, and even if I knew that, I couldn't have predicted the speech that she was going to make during her vows and make it all about me. To be honest, I kind of believe that whatever happened was for the best. This way, some innocent guy doesn't get hurt just because Taylor wanted to show off how over me she was. I feel bad that our friends are not on my side here because it feels really unfair and the blame feels completely misplaced. But this has happened before and I can't say that I'm surprised because I always knew that if it came down to it, they would definitely pick Taylor over me. Even during the divorce, it was Taylor and her lawyer who were really coming for me during the negotiations. When I used to complain about that to our friends, they would say that she was just doing it because she was hurt and that I needed to understand that this divorce was harder for her than it was for me and cut her some slack. So most of them had always been on her side and this really doesn't come as a surprise. But I guess it's just a little hurtful that even in a situation like this, where I'm obviously not in the wrong, they still want to take her side. I'll get over it, but I'm not going to speak to our friends again. I don't really know what happened with Taylor and her fiancé. I know the wedding is off, but I'm also curious to know more. She hasn't reached out to me yet or anything, but I have a feeling that she might. Since her parents also believe that this was my fault and they will most certainly talk to her and then she will come and blame me and it'll be a whole fight. Even just thinking about it makes me feel uneasy. Update 2. Hi. So this is coming just a day after my last update here. I said here that I stopped talking to our mutual friends because all of them were siding with Taylor. I didn't block them, but I just stopped replying to them. I didn't think that they would notice it so soon, but they did, and they decided to confront me about it. We have a group text, without Taylor, of course. They have a separate one with her. And today, one of our friends confronted me in the group and asked me why I was ignoring all of them. So I decided to be honest with them, and I told them that I didn't like the fact that they were choosing to blame me even now, knowing that this was not my fault. I told him that it had been really difficult for me, even during the divorce, because Taylor and her lawyer were really trying their best to make me look like a bad guy, and it was a very emotionally tough time for me. But even then, they took her side and completely invalidated my feelings. This time, they were doing the same thing yet again, and funnily enough, this time I didn't even do anything except just attend a wedding that I was invited to. And I was requested to attend, as a matter of fact. I told them that it was very clear that no matter what happened they would always be on her side. And it might sound petty and immature, but that's what I was upset about. So I didn't want to speak to them because then, they would just keep on blaming me and I didn't need that sort of negativity right now. And just as I had expected, as soon as I said that, everybody in the group started telling me that I was overreacting and that I really needed to calm down. They tried to convince me that this was not a big deal and that they were just telling me their honest opinions. It had nothing to do with taking sides because they valued both Taylor and me equally. I didn't buy it, and so I told them that I knew that Taylor was the fan favorite here and always would be. And I was cool with it now, but I just needed some space and time away from this group, because it was becoming really toxic for me. I regretted using the word toxic because that pissed them off. They immediately turned on me and called me the toxic one because I was the one who ruined her wedding and now, I was the one playing the victim according to them. I got really bored with that conversation because it all just felt like a bunch of high school juvenile BS, so I left that group and finally blocked all of them. They didn't even have anything to do with the wedding. If Taylor called me toxic, I would accept it gladly because at least she was involved in some capacity. It would be ridiculous, but at least not as ridiculous as our friends trying to create drama with me out of nothing. They're probably just bored with their own lives and want somebody to hate on, which is me. They can go on hating, it hardly matters to me anymore. They suck. Update 3. 10 days since the wedding and today, Taylor finally called me. I didn't answer because I was at work, so that was followed by a bunch of texts, demanding that I answer her call and talk to her right this instant. So during lunch, I decided to call her back and prepared myself for a really terrible argument, which is what I was expecting. But strangely enough, that's not what she was calling me for. She sounded quieter and even kind of sad, while I expected her to be furious. She went on to tell me that she wanted to apologize for everything and she wanted to do it in person. Apparently, in the days after the wedding got called off, she had been feeling terrible about everything. And even though her friends and family were doing all they could to make me the villain here and pin all the blame on me, it didn't make her feel any better because she knew that it was not the truth. In her head, she knew that this was her own fault. And she could try to make it seem like mine for just being there, but the truth was that she wanted it to happen. She didn't anticipate her fiancé leaving her because of whatever she said, but she agreed that if she was still talking about me at her second wedding, then she probably wasn't over me at all. It felt weird to hear all of this from her, but I also felt relieved that she was finally owning up to everything. She didn't want to discuss this further on the phone and said that she wanted to meet me. So we set a date in a couple of days and we'll get together for lunch and just get some closure, I guess. Update 4. Hi, everybody, I just came back home from my lunch date with my ex-wife. That's a sentence I never thought that I would say, but here we are. It was quite pleasant, even though there were a lot of uncomfortable truths that we had to get out of the way before we even started with lunch. We actually hugged each other when we met and it felt comfortable and familiar. After that, we got to talking and she confessed to me that she really only invited me because she wanted to talk about me and show me that she didn't miss me anymore. But the truth was that she missed me every single day. And the guy she was about to marry was just somebody that she was trying to use to forget me, but it wasn't working. And she completely deserved to be humiliated in front of all her friends and family on the day of her wedding because she was lying to him, and herself. It was a horrible thing that she did to him, and she held no grudges against them, for whatever he said on the day of the wedding and the things that his family said to her. Because at the end of the day, it was all true and there was no denying it. I felt a little embarrassed by that because she was essentially talking about still being in love with me. And I knew that I wasn't. But this was a conversation that needed to be had, no matter how uncomfortable or uneasy it made us feel. So we powered through it and she told me that she was still in love with me and had always been. There was nothing that she could do about it, so she accepted it instead of trying to show the world that she had moved on. I acknowledged her feelings and told her that even though I didn't reciprocate it, I was still happy that she had love for me in her heart. It's always nice to know that you're loved. I said to her that while I couldn't bring myself to love her in the same way, maybe I still wanted her to be happy and I wished the best for her. She cried, and when I saw her crying, I couldn't hold back the tears myself because it was just extremely emotional and cathartic for both of us. We wasted a lot of time hating each other, and I don't think we wanted to continue that anymore now that both of us were getting older. We just wanted things to be peaceful, that's it. So we promised to keep in touch, and that's how we parted ways. I can't say that it wasn't difficult for me, it was. But I'm sure that it was more difficult for her to let go of me, knowing that I would probably never love her the same as she loved me. It made me feel horrible about myself. But I know that this is not my fault, and this is for the best. She deserves somebody who can give her everything that she wants and make her truly happy, and unfortunately, I don't think I'm that guy. I tried to be that guy while we were married, but we all know how that ended. And since then I haven't exactly been with anyone. I've been out on a couple of dates here and there, but I just don't think that I'm a relationship kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just wish that Taylor finds somebody who wants the exact same things as her. It will be a lot easier for me to forget about her if I know that she is with somebody who is good for her.